The Board of Direct Entry, Midwifery, Legend, Drugs and Devices Qualification Committee meeting is convening at 1:02 p.m. on May 22nd, 2023 at the Health Licensing Office in Salem, Oregon by telephone conference call. I will now call roll. Holly Scholas.
Present.
Pauline Forbes.
Present.
Julia Bailey. Absent. Greg Ramirez. Greg is present. He's on mute. Greg, can you hear us?
He's frozen.
I think Greg is frozen. I will call him as present, but technical difficulties. Desi Lang.
Here.
Catherine Bailey.
Here.
And Haley Beeson has resigned from the committee and she is no longer there. So we'll make sure she gets taken off future roll calls. Members, when you wish to speak, please state your last name for the record. Committee members are asked to not use the chat feature during meetings. Public members wishing to speak must first sign in on the roster sheet available. For public members calling in on the public phone line, please email April Fleming at april.fleming@oha.oregon.gov and provide your first and last name. Public and interested parties' feedback may be heard during the public interested parties' feedback period if indicated on the agenda. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. This meeting is called to order.
Do we have any public members, Cynthia?
Do we have any public on the phone? No, we do not. And Greg has left the meeting. Hopefully he'll try to sign back on, but we still have a quorum so we can move forward. Oh, Greg is back.
Yes.
I just can't see you. Interesting.
Oh, here we go. How's that?
Can anyone else see Greg? No. Well, we can hear you.
I see his icon, but not his picture.
The camera's on.
Well, if you're okay, Greg, with moving forward without us being able to see your face.
That's fine. My camera's on and I can see my face.
Okay. So let's talk about the agenda. We called to order. We're going to be going over the written examination content questionnaire outcome form. We will be starting where we left off, which was explaining the storage for each Legend drugs. And then we'll just move forward with all of the different content areas in order to build the examination blueprint map. Currently, with the work that we had done, we came out to 75 questions. And so we will go through like we did before.
How many of those were essential, Cynthia? This is Holly. Of the 75 questions, how many of them did we indicate have to be included on every exam? You have that? How many of them were ones as opposed to?
Oh, let's see. We have 1, 2, 3, 7, 15, 16, 22, 32 mandatory questions.
I think that will not grow a lot as we move forward. But that's so about half of what we have are mandatory.
Okay, so and then moving forward, we will so today actually, as if we can get through, we will which we need to get through, we will take a short 15-minute break, and Brandon Chastain is sitting next to me, and he is writing these roll-in versus mandatory questions to build our blueprint. So we'll be able to see by the end of the meeting what that actually looks like. And then, so our next meeting will be June 29th. And at that meeting, we will be going over questions that will be written based off of the content areas that we have decided to have covered on the written examination. And then we will also be going over the finalized standardized competencies and skills examination, potentially at this next meeting, if not the following meeting, which is August 24th. But we'll wrap it up and tie it all together as soon as we're done with this written examination and put a bow on it and present it to the board. So, and we potentially may have to have another meeting, hopefully not for the written examination, but if 2 isn't enough, we'll definitely add another one. So there's, like, I think we talked about at one of the committee meetings, having 200 questions. Well, 200 questions is a lot for a committee to go through. I will be reviewing those. Brandon and Carrie Edwards, which I'm not sure if you have met Carrie. She also works in the qualification section, will be going through all the reference materials and preliminarily writing those questions. I'll be going over them and then also working with Holly Scholas before they are presented to this committee. That way you guys can look at those, just, give a yay, nay kind of thing and move forward. That way it takes a lot of time off of you as a committee to write those questions. So with that, does anyone have any questions? Okay, Colleen, do you want me to kind of catch you up on where we're at in regards to the mandatory versus roll-in versus no question?
That'd be great.
Okay, so what we did is this whole document, we went through each of these content areas and we are still working on the section 1.4, which is taking a lot of time because there's so many areas to cover in regards to each of the pharmacologics for the mechanism of the pharmacological action, the onset of the action, the peak effect, therapeutic. So we're going through that section right now. And what we're doing, each line item for each of those pharmacologics is we are determining, yes, do we want to ask a question? And if we do want to ask a question, is it a mandatory question that needs to be on the examination, or is it one we can roll in to the examination as in the bank? And then, or no question at all. So we're just going line item by line item and moving through the list. And so we are actually on L, and I'm going to share my screen.
So Colleen, mandatory means everybody has to answer that question on the test. Versus
like everybody has to get it right.
What?
Like everybody has to get it right.
Well, it has to be asked, and they have to get it.
Like, we hope they get it right.
Sure. Because a lot of the questions, half of the questions we've gone over so far are like that. Like it's going to be on every test. Of the other questions, they may or may not be on the test, and on any one particular person's test, because they're rolled in and rolled out so that every test is not identical.
Got it.
They come from a bank of questions.
Okay, I see.
Or do we not even want to bother to put it in the bank? It's not, because there's a limited number of slots potential for the test. You don't want it to take 2 days, So,
Okay.
So we're aiming for roughly a 200 item test, which means we'll probably create 300 to 400 questions for the bank, of which some will be mandatory and on every single test. And some will be on some, but not on other tests.
And so that's what we're determining now. What is mandatory on every test? What can roll in and what do we want to get rid of?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
It's not important. Not that it might not be an important thing for them to learn, but there's a limit to what we can ask in the real world.
Yeah, for sure.
So currently, so far, can you guys see my screen?
Can you ambiguize it a little bit?
Yes, here, let me get that.
Embigate, is that what you said? Embigger?
Embigorize it. Yeah, make it bigger. Not just enlarge, embigorize.
Got it.
There you go.
This is just like an example of under therapeutic effects. There are 13 questions. And this number, generally we take about 50% of the roll-in questions, but for mandatory questions under therapeutic effects, there are 4. So, and as you go through, you can see like under side effects, there is one question that is a mandatory and there's 7 that are roll-ins. And so that will be 4 questions within that bank of roll-in. And
So-
then,
This
Go
isn't
ahead.
the document we work off of.
No.
that's the
Hey,
document the
what is
staff
this
works off
document? This
of.
is a different thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is going to be actually it's called a map. And this will be our final to determine what our total number of questions in the actual examination ends up looking like. So, and we'll show you that the final today. That's what Brendan will be working on. So no, this is what we're working on right
Yeah,
here, and I'm gonna
did that
zoom
earlier.
in.
Uh-huh.
So Colleen, a little background, when I started first, you're gonna have to invigorate, thank you, darling.
Is that big enough?
Yeah, I think that'll work. Can you do it one more?
Uh-huh,
One
yeah.
more thing? When I first started working on this, Colleen, I worked on it before that document went out that said yes or no. I started working on it right away. And so I made up my own 1, 2, 3 system. 1, mandatory on every test. 2, put it in the bank. 3, never mind. So that's why my column, because I'm number 4, has numbers in it, and everybody else just has a yes and no.
Okay.
Because I created my own system for doing it, because that's what made sense to me. Because
And
yes
that
or
means-
no the yes wasn't enough for me, because I needed to have in my mind,
Sure.
that distinction. So
Like, yes, how no?
So we've been going through, and sometimes we've been changing our mind about what we put down as we discuss it briefly, and that's completely allowed under the rules of this game.
Okay.
And at the end, we all get a participation prize.
Really, I'm
Yes.
waiting.
Yeah, and with that participation prize is your name in the minutes.
You know, I've been there, done that. It wasn't that exciting.
Yeah, I know. You're not in it for the prize, that's for sure.
And I think once we get past section 1.4, it'll move very quickly.
I think
So
so.
we are on the explain the storage for each legend drugs and legend drug. And so for synthetic oxytocin, consensus was yes, there needs to be a question, but it was a 2, which is a rolling question. And so is everybody good with that?
Mhm.
Okay, so the methergen, again, same thing. Consensus was, it was 50-50. And so, however, on the, for Holly, it was, it should be a rolling question. And so on this, half of you said yes, and then half of you said no on asking a question. So we need to decide whether we want to have a question for methergen for storage.
I stick with my 2 on this one. I think it's a drug that, is important, and it gets actually used by most midwives who are licensed. And so having a rolling question on it seems reasonable, that they don't confuse it with something else. We decided also that ergotrade and ergonovine, because they're not available in the United States for pretty much anybody to use, we are giving all of those ergonovine things 3s.
Yeah, no questions on those.
No
Mm.
question on those.
Yeah, Roland seems fine to me for methogen.
We're good with
Yeah.
rolling? Okay, perfect.
Rolling, rolling,
And-
rolling.
And then for the anti-hemorrhagics by intravenous, for the oxytocin,
So
it
this is
was,
one of those, Cerinthia, where as long as we ask about it for use as an IM injection, the storage is the same, whether it's for IV administration or not. So when we craft the questions, we'll more generalize it. So I think this is one of those that we could make be a 3.
Yeah.
The TXA, though, no, that needs to be asked. And because it's
So do
new,
you-
I'm inclined, it needs to be at least a 2. And I mean, doesn't have specific storage considerations. It's more the administration considerations. So I'm okay with the 2. Do other people have strong opinions on TXA?
I think a 2 is fine because it's new, like you said, so rolling in and out, but once you get it, you get it.
Yeah.
okay. And then for the methergen, it was 50-50 on that.
I could go with a 3. It's a pill. So
You
storage.
can't even
by
afford to get
storage.
it anymore.
Yeah, if you can even
I'd
get
say
it
no
anymore.
question.
Okay,
So 2 or a 3 for me.
What,
Other
Catherine,
people?
were you gonna say something?
I think no question is fine.
Yeah.
okay. And then we moved the cited tech down to the buccal administration.
Right.
And
And
then,
again-
so previously it was a 50-50, so it was no.
I'm okay with a no also.
Mhm.
Okay, for cited tech.
Same thing.
Same thing, yeah.
Okay, for the lactated ringer.
Now, all
So-
of the IV fluids have to be not frozen and not get too hot. So there are storage considerations as opposed to a pill that there really aren't. So we could have one question on IV fluid as a 2, put it in the bank.
For all of these.
Yeah, but we'd end up only having one. So it would be, we did this before when we talked about this privately, Corinthia, before our last meeting. We put it up on the line that says resuscitation IV fluid replacements instead of putting it with the individual IVs, because it's all of them.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll have one question for that, like you stated, and it will roll in these 4 areas.
Yeah, but each of them doesn't
5.
need, no, it's more like IV fluid needs to blah, blah, blah. It doesn't have to list those 4 different types.
Okay,
So I
So
would
you're
put
saying
it
that the question would just say any IV fluids,
right. Yeah.
any fluid administered by IV storage question.
okay,
So that's why I would put it up there at the heading, resuscitation intravenous fluid replacement, and go over where right now we have a 1 and just make that a 2.
okay, I get it.
Okay.
Okay. So then the medical oxygen,
This is still about storage.
Yeah,
yes,
this is all about storage. So you don't want to again, you don't want it to get cold. You don't want to freeze it, but I can live without. I can make that a 3 and be happy.
everybody
know.
good with a 3?
Yeah.
Okay, the epinephrine,
That needs, in my mind, to be at least a 2, mainly because you cannot store it outside of its bottle and like pre-draw it without potential bad consequences. So it's very vulnerable to, for instance, light and temperature extremes. So I would put it in as a rolling question myself, but I could live without it. It's also potentially a really dangerous drug. So I tend to be a little more sketchy about epinephrine is a more sensitive drug of the drugs that are in our formulary. It may be the most sensitive. So
everybody good with a 2?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so for the lidocaine,
2 or a 3. I could go with a 3.
everybody good with a 3?
Yeah, I would.
Yeah,
think-
I don't have a strong preference.
Okay, the procaine,
Same thing.
Same thing.
okay, the water papules a 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Rogam, though, I don't know what I was thinking when I gave it a 2. It should probably be a 1.
1, yeah.
Has to be refrigerated. Yeah.
Now, whether everybody should answer it, probably, I don't know, probably yes. Yeah.
All right. The Germabond a 3,
Yeah.
penicillin,
2?
Yeah, I think 2 for
ampicillin,
same.
Same.
cetirizine,
Same.
same with the clindamycin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do we need a question for all of those, or should we just have one question about antibiotics?
I'm trying to remember, and I'm not remembering if there are differences in the storage for those, but I think they're all come to us as powders.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's why I was hesitating, is that they're pretty temperature stable and they're pretty light stable. So I would almost be tempted to have, if one in general up above, like we did before, and have it be a 2 at best.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I was thinking.
Okay. The eye prophylaxis,
3.
Yeah, I think a 3.
okay.
Once you get the loan to buy it, all the trauma is already passed. So, so expensive.
Yeah, and I get the Mephiton, I know I can't get that one right. I couldn't get that one right last time. Sorry.
All right. Sure.
Either a
Everybody-
2 or a 3. I mean, there's nothing really.
It's a pill. So again, it could be a 3.
3,
I like that.
It's reasonable.
okay.
For the aquamaphyton, the phytonadione liquid, I think that needs to be a 2. It definitely needs dark storage area. It's temperature sensitive, so at least a 2. But it's not as life-threatening, you know, if it's
Okay, what about the medical oxygen?
the same 3. The same for resuscitation as for hemorrhage, for shock. Transportation.
Yay.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
So these are things like, are there any special considerations in moving it from place to place? And I tend to see most of these as 3s, because the actual transporting of it is not the essential piece. Right. So you can take it from your refrigerator, put it in your car, take it to the berth, and no harm done if it requires refrigeration. But I'm open to what other people think.
No, I think that we don't need to ask questions about that.
Yeah, I agree. No question.
Okay.
Down, down, down.
So all of these are going to be
Nose.
even on the TXA.
In terms of transport, it's not a consideration.
Okay, very good.
Don't transport your lactated ringers in your sewing kit with open needles. That might be a transport consideration, but
Did you
Not-
say something about epinephrine though? Was there something, or is it still a no?
it's still a no because it's about transporting is what this section
Okay.
is on, and it's not relevant. The only one that might be relevant is oxygen.
Mhm.
Because we do transfer it, and it is potentially unstable and flammable. So, for instance, it potentially could blow up in a car accident.
Do we
So-
want to make that a 2?
I'm okay with the 2 for it. It's the only one I can think of a transport issue.
There are
Yes,
considerations.
Don't get rear-ended. It's just about it.
I'm sorry, Greg.
Well,
what
it
did you
needs to be
say?
keep the cylinder from rolling around the back seat or the back of the car. That's the main thing. It needs to be in a stable carrier, which most of them are, but not all of them, and relatively wedged in so it's not just freely rolling around the back of the transport vehicle. That's the main thing.
Yes, and that was my point, is the bottle itself it's a bomb basically. So yeah,
Right.
it needs to be transported appropriately.
So that's why I think it needs at least a 2. But that's the only one of those that I think is like that. It's the only
So-
bomb, for instance.
Same with the lidocaine program, propane and sterile waters. I'll just keep
Yeah.
going and make
Yeah.
them know. And the ROD.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think ROD can be out for, in fact, you want to kind of bring it a little bit to room temperature before you administer it. So
So do you want a 2 on that one?
no, I think it's
No.
all right as a 3.
Dermot Bond, no. And what about the
None of
penicillin?
them. No. All no's.
Okay.
We hate these. No.
No.
Fido.
And then the medical oxygen, we've already covered up above because it's the same oxygen. So the oxygen for resuscitation is
yeah.
the same. It's the same oxygen tank. So,
Okay.
so that can be a no.
Oh, you want that a no too?
Because we don't need 2 questions on it in the
Two
bank.
questions, yeah.
1 question. Yeah, I'm trying to think about it that way too for the map. Keep going.
Okay.
So
So for
security.
Security.
So I'm not sure what security meant as opposed to all the things we've already talked about for it. So I just gave it all 3s. Maybe we don't even need this whole section possibly if we're not sure what we want them to say about security. We've already talked about storage. We've talked about transfer.
None of them are controlled substances.
None of them are controlled substances. So do we just, I mean, in my mind, it's 3s, but do we even need this section at all? This 1.46 or whatever.
What was the intent of this?
It came, these categories came off of the original competencies from 2000, when we first got formulary privileges.
Mhm.
And it was one of the things that somebody else on the committee wanted to have in there in terms of, I don't know why, but because none of them are controlled substances.
Yeah, I think the only potentially even remotely risky one, and I think this is still reaching, is the epi.
Right. I don't think many people would look at an EpiPen and think recreational drug.
I mean, I did have my equipment stolen out of my car once. I was like, well, good luck with that, boys. I don't know what you want to have a good time.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be very disappointed.
Exactly.
I don't think you need this section, I guess.
Yeah,
I agree. I would take it out.
Yeah.
And thus we can take it out of the competencies too.
That's what I was just going to ask you. Do you want me to eliminate it from the competencies as well?
I think so, because none of us are really sure what we would say in this section.
Okay.
My only thought is if it's asking like how we track, but maybe that's already somewhere else. Like, how do we keep track of?
We have a requirement about that and a section about that, I believe, in the competencies about the requirement to have our formulary tracking system and keep it for 3-year minimum and all that stuff. So, Greg, can you think of any reason for this?
No, I'm looking at this and there's no particular reason in any of these. Yeah, that security is an issue. Again, they're not controlled substances. I'm not going to make any money in a back alley trying to sell them.
Right?
TXA market, man.
I mean, I was just like, you boys go for that with that pit. Knock yourselves out down there in that alley of mine. Go for it.
They probably wanted the bag it was in.
I think they just took it because it looked like something that might have something, and they were probably really disappointed and landed in some dumpster.
Ditching it somewhere,
I had
right?
that happen to me too on a Christmas morning at a birth, and they stole some stuff out. In between the first trip and the second trip, they stole stuff out of the back of my truck.
Wow.
Yeah. They figured Christmas morning, who's gonna?
Yeah.
All right, so all of that would be gone.
And so now we're on disposal.
This seems like something that needs one question in the thing, in the bank, about how do you dispose of legend drugs? Like, not an individual by individual question to me.
For all of the drugs?
Like maybe one for pills and one for vial, like something like that, or?
Yeah. Yeah, one for pills, one for vials. Oxygen, you just let it loose in the air. So that one doesn't even need a question.
Okay, so I don't know which ones are pills versus
the
others. So
let's give a 2 to 1.4.1 just in general, not the individual drug, like you did. And then keep going down. For oral administration, do one for 1.4.3, make that a 2 in that general category.
Okay.
And then we could do one for IV fluid because you can put it down the sink, but that doesn't really feel like, that could be a question. So maybe make that a 2.
This one as well.
Yeah.
Nothing on the rectal?
Nah, it's the same. It's still
It's
a
the
pill.
same, yeah.
Okay, okay. The oxygen?
Just let it open her up. I don't think it needs to be anything.
No question on that. Even epinephrine is disposed the same as the Pitocin. So keep going down, honey. I mean, some of this stuff like the Dermabond, you just throw in the trash. Erythromycin, just throw in the trash. Yeah, I think we're good on that one. Anything springing out to people that needs its own question?
No.
No?
All right, stop,
Okay.
back up.
Oops, oopsie. Yep, there we go.
So 1.
Yay, we're
made
done
it
with
to
1.4. Yay.
Phew, that's like major. I'm feeling a sense of relief and pride.
Very good. Brandon brought up a good point. What about the disposal of the oxygen containers? Is there
So
something
those should
special?
just be rotated out with whoever their supplier is. You should
Right,
never
that's
have
all
to
about,
dispose
that's not about, is that about, what were we just talking about? We were talking about
Disposal.
disposal. You know, when you get it pressure tested, you may have to replace it, but then whoever is pressure testing it usually just keeps it. They don't give it back to you.
Right.
And this doesn't seem like something that we should be regulating either, or like there's multiple ways depending on who their supplier is, and
Right.
probably not something we need a question on.
Okay.
I mean, if we're going to have a question, it would be on somewhere up above about pressure testing in terms of something about that. So,
Okay. Okay. All right. So now we are past that section. Wonderful. So now it's basically line by line, define an adverse reaction to a pharmacological agent.
I still think 2.
Everybody good with
Okay.
2?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Describe how an adverse reaction to a pharmacological agent is transferred to the baby.
That seems really obvious to me, which is why I gave it either a 2 or a 3.
I think it can be a 3. It's pretty obvious.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah. Mhm.
And the same thing with the next one.
Same thing on the no question there. Okay. Moving along, define agonists. A roll-in question
It
potentially.
looks like we've got three yeses, including my 2, so I'd make it a 2.
Okay.
The next one as well.
This was 50-50 yes, no. You want no question on that?
The 1.10.
Yeah, the key differences between the two.
Well, I do, but I don't get to be the decider. So what do people think? If they know what an agonist is and what an antagonist is, they should know the differences. And to have another question potentially about it seems like a little overkill, but
That's what I was thinking as
I'm
well.
easy.
That's
You
how I
get-
feel about it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only so much you need to know about agonists and antagonists as a midwife, right? You know, and it seems like knowing what they are is sufficient. Everything else, binding and blocking, you know, whatever, that's good and good to, you'll cover it in a pharmacology class, but it doesn't need to be on the test, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I would do one question about the difference or just the definitions, but not all 3.
Not all 3. Okay. And then this was a no on this question,
The
consensus.
next 2, no question. Yeah.
No on that one. So this one was a yes and a rolling question, define tolerance as it relates. Everybody good with the 2?
Mhm.
And then this was a 50-50, explain reduce reaction after repeated use.
I don't
We
think
don't
that's as important for the meds we use because we're not using them over and over again.
That's right. That was my thinking too.
Okay, everybody good with that? And so the next one, re-enhancement after dosage was a no.
Mhm.
Accelerated tolerance was a no. Explain the interactions to pharmacological agents for maternal physio. These were all no's. Everybody good with that?
Good.
Mostly because the drugs we use, this wouldn't apply to.
Okay. Adverse fetal effects resulting from pharmacological interactions. This was a yes. And a roll-in, everybody good with a roll-in, or you think it needs to be a mandatory?
No.
I think because the Pitocin and Methergin interaction is a bad one, and the Pitocin, or not, I'm sorry, I said Methergin, I meant epinephrine. The Pitocin epinephrine interaction is potentially has a bad effect on maternal situations, and also because actually it's almost all about the stupid epinephrine, which can be given during pregnancy if there's and during labor, if say she reacts to the antibiotics during labor. So it might be, and then that creates adverse fetal effects. So, but that's not a pharmacological interaction. A 2 or a 3. It looks like everybody wants it, so let's make it be a 2.
Okay, everybody good with that?
Good.
Okay, so placebo effect, it was yes, a 2, roll-in.
Sure, that's a gimme for the students, but sure.
I mean, if you don't know what a placebo effect is by the time you're taking this test, give me a break, people.
Yeah,
Do
exactly.
we really need to waste a question on that?
I'm okay with a 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, and then this one was also a no. For the benefit, compliance, describe what it means to be in compliance with the administration of pharmaceuticals. It was a
I don't know what
yes,
that
but
means.
I was just going to look that up. What on earth did we mean by that? This is
Yeah, I
one-
don't know why I would have put yes. That doesn't make sense.
I'm looking for the competencies, and they're not immediately springing to my top of my pile.
it says describe what it means to be in compliance with the administration of pharmaceuticals, a state of being in accordance with prescribed rules and guidelines. That's it.
Oh, that's a 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, listen to define the various routes of administration. Okay, I had a question on this one. We have 2 different things, listing and then defining. So I wasn't sure if you wanted 2 different categories for listing them, knowing what they were, and then also defining them individually, or I just wanted to bring that up.
Well, in terms of creating questions for the test, we could have something that says list all the routes of administration used by in the Oregon Midwifery Formulary, but that to me seems less important than that they know what they are, that they can define what that means and what the difference is between subcutaneous and intradermal or oral and buccal or whatever to me. And I think those are all important and they should all be rotated. None of them are mandatory in my mind, but they should definitely be in the bank, and hopefully they'll get 1 or 2 of them on their test, at least.
Is this
no.
like saying, like for IM sub-Q intradermal, like the angle of the injection, or?
No, this is defining the route is that you're injecting into the muscle
Okay.
layer as opposed to into the fat or just under the skin, or the angle and all that I think comes later,
Okay.
if I'm remembering correctly.
So we'll make this a group of that all roll in under this one category.
Well, each of them gets their own separate rule in. We're just not going to list. We're not going to have a question about
Oh, I
listing.
see, okay.
And there are ways of routes of administering that are not, I think we didn't, oh no, we did include a lot, but there are other routes actually in addition to these that we've listed. These are just the ones that are mostly us, except we don't have inhaled, I don't think, but.
I'm sorry, you said impaled?
Inhale.
Well, inhaled.
Oh, inhaled.
Sometimes it feels like you impaled them. But
Sometimes it does.
Did you want inhaled on this list?
no.
No,
Oh,
you can take that off. That could be a 3.
oh, you want okay, you want this inhaled
And
removed?
vaginal can also be a 3 in my mind because we don't administer any of these drugs vaginally.
Everybody good with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
No,
Yeah.
we want inhaled can be on the list. We just
Oh,
want
I
a question on it. In my mind,
Oh,
in
gotcha.
terms of a competency, I'm fine with it being a competency, but I just don't think it needs to be on the test. My bad.
Definite, define. No, we are. Yes. Just not listing, just defining what those routes are. What it means. Good.
We don't need a separate question that says list the routes.
So is it still written here as list just because that's how it's written in the competencies?
Right.
Okay. Got it. Mhm.
They just transfer the competencies to this document.
But I can remove it here and just have it define.
No, I think list is fine for a competency. But
Yeah,
No,
I'm
we
just clarifying like if that's where that list came, the word list came from, and then does it need to be here? But it seems like it's fine for consistency's sake to have it here.
if we're going to take it out here, we have to take it out of the competencies. But we could just say define the various routes of administration.
Yes, here. It
In both
the
places.
well, it does it on the exam piece really? I mean, even though on the competencies it is list and define because that's what they're learning, but really on the test, can we just list it defined? Can they be different?
Oh yeah, totally.
So we
Totally.
could, because we're not going to list them, we're just going to define them
Oh,
here.
Yeah. I was under the impression we couldn't change it here without changing the competency, but that's good to know. Now we're going to change all kinds of things because we can.
Okay. Thanks, Holly.
You're
Okay, placental transfer. Explain what placental transfer, and then it was a mix, 2 to 3 and a 50-50. Oh, I guess it was overall, yes, excuse me. Thoughts?
Yeah.
No
I mean,
question.
how detailed do you want to get about that? Like,
Yeah, well, I'm always thinking about what is the question going to look like, and is it going to be a giveaway? And most of these we can't do true false. We're not doing essay. We're not doing listing where they list things. These are going to be basically multiple choice. So when I think about explain placental transfer, how are you going to create a listing question that isn't either a dead giveaway or just stupid? I mean,
Right,
a
totally.
choice question. And same thing with how pharmacologic agents reaches the fetus. I mean, via the placenta, right?
don't give them to them directly. Don't make them take them. Like, bad idea. Okay,
Yeah.
moving.
Don't do an emergency cesarean to that's
Well,
just
yeah, right. Oh, because it's placental transfer. Yeah. So, no, it's done.
so I
No
think
problem.
both of them should be no's at this point,
Everybody good with that?
even though we were all yeses. Because the thing that I realized as I've continued to work with this is there's the question, is it important for them to know versus is it possible to ask it on this test in a way that makes
Right.
sense? And is it important enough to ask it on the test? So
Okay, so no question on that one, moving forward with the movement through the body. Explain how pharmaceuticals move through the body. It was consensus yes, and Roland.
I think 1.25 should now be a no, but 1.26 should be a 2 because of how you can make the questions work.
Okay.
And
I'm gonna go with-
basically, how
I'm
the
gonna go-
pharmaceutical, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, I'm going to go with what you're saying, and then please, anybody else, just if you disagree or, please provide your
Yeah,
input.
definitely.
Okay.
But we can have a great listing question or a couple on routes of absorption, whereas the way pharmaceuticals move through the body is, there's different routes, but it's all kind of the same. The route of excretion, you either pee it or poop it away. So that could be a listing question. That could be, the normal route of excretion, and it could have more than one correct answer, or it could have, multiple answers. So that makes a reasonable question, although kind of obvious. And the primary objective of metabolism, that's a straight pharmacology question that is easy to make a question on. So that's why I gave those 2s, 126, 127, and 128. Do people think we should remove a couple of them though? I'm okay with that.
I just don't think that the route of excretion is important to include on a test.
Yeah,
No.
I'm okay with
just-
that.
Okay. All right. Explain the charting and authorized legend drugs and devices for receipt and disposal.
So this is the getting at the how do you keep a record of it?
It seems like the 1.30 would cover, like you could do a question that would cover
Mhm.
the
That's just like
information in
a list
1.29.
of the required pieces.
Good, that's good, Desi, yeah.
I agree.
And it
Okay.
seems like the word "and" should be "of" in the explain the charting and authorized legend drugs and devices for. I think it should be charting of.
Mm-hmm.
And that might also be true in the competencies, Cynthia.
Okay.
So this is just on charting, the use,
Okay.
right? So this is what you're putting in your chart. So the next thing is on the tracking system, which is a requirement under the law. And I think that probably 1.31 isn't necessary, but 1.32 probably is, because it is a legal requirement, and what needs to be included.
Should it be a mandatory?
No, I think it can be a rolling myself, although we could make it mandatory. That's why I put a 1 or a 2 on record maintenance and storage. But
And Desi, I heard you
Yeah, I think it should be mandatory, but
on each of these.
I would know, just like
1.3 today.
I guess I feel like they could be wrapped up into one question, but I don't feel strongly about it.
Well, purchasing, administering, and disposal are one kind of thing. Purchasing usually doesn't go into the chart, and neither does disposal, just administering.
Yeah, I was
Record
just
maintenance
thinking
is a
more
whole
of,
different thing.
I guess I was just thinking more of like maintaining the record of like purchase and disposal.
Yeah, putting those two together.
Yeah. And that the others weren't important for the test.
Administering either.
That's covered in other areas.
That's covered in charting.
Okay.
So disposal's not charted?
No, because disposal includes unused drugs disposal.
So there's a process for that?
Yeah, we're supposed to do a certain amount of logging in a separate document from the chart about acquisition, intake into your practice, and then how you dispose of it if you haven't administered it, and
Okay.
where you've disposed of it. because we each keep our own system, you know, we each have our own thing. We don't have a, you know, it's not a hospital or a medic kind of situation.
All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to write the question in regards to the record maintenance and storage to include the purchasing and disposal. And it'll be a mandatory question. Correct?
I don't agree with Desi on that one. I think records maintenance and storage, unless what you're saying is by maintenance, you mean what you put in the record. I guess I could see that. Yeah, I guess if I can
I
see
don't, I
that.
guess, I don't know exactly what it means by maintenance here either.
Explain
Well-
requirements for tracking legend drugs and devices and how you maintain it, what the time frame is there what you're gonna log in regards to, you know, your purchasing and administering that's your maintenance of that.
Okay.
Because a lot of maintenance is also storage, right? Where do you keep it? How do you keep it? You know, who keeps it?
How long do
Yeah.
you have to keep it?
Mhm.
Yes, how long? Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you want it a rolling question or a mandatory? Catherine, Colleen?
Yeah.
Not mandatory to me.
Colleen?
Well, I'm kind of like, I think that something about, yeah, how we keep track of how we log and keep track and,
But that's 1.31, right?
We're doing no question on that one.
Well,
That was the system. Oh, but explain the requirements for the,
right, yeah, 1.30, I guess. This just like, it just seems like this keeps repeating itself. I don't know.
Well, charting is different than logging.
charting is different than logging. And so it seems like just 1.32.
Okay. You're right, but it says charting in 1.29, but receipt and disposal are logging, not charting. That's so I thought this was about logging 1.29 and 1.30.
That is a good point. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right, so it should, so explain
not
the
charting
charting of, it should be administration.
Right, because like receipt and disposal are copied down at 1.32 purchasing and disposal 1.32D. Like
Totally. Uh-huh.
we could leave 1.29 as charting and have a question about, you know, needing to chart the expiration date and the lot number and the NDC code or whatever.
Mhm.
So in that case, we don't need 1.29, we just need 1.30.
Sure, and that's actually about charting. Great.
Mhm.
So if we eliminate 1.29, because it's already covered under, we could say purchasing / receipt, right? Because you don't always purchase them. Sometimes they come in other ways. Not usually though, not anymore, but, and then disposal's the same, so. So if we get rid of 1.29, Cynthia, completely, we keep 1.30, it'll become, we'll have to renumber. And then we add purchasing / receipt, or just leave it as purchasing even. We no longer have very many times where it comes in otherwise. Sometimes clients bring them in though, but.
So 132, are we gonna have a question on 132 then? Or no, because
Yeah.
that's covered under,
Yeah, but I would personally say just one question, not one about all four of them.
Me too.
Yeah, and combine 1.31 with 1.32. Actually, I might get rid of 1.31 completely. Describe a system, great, but the state of Oregon says you have to include these things and you have to keep it for this long and you have to do this and you have to do that. So describing a system.
Yeah, so 1.31 is moot.
Yeah, so that's the no. So we can.
is that just going away from this entirely or
from the
just,
test for sure.
Mhm.
and then,
1.32 are the requirements. And so record maintenance, purchasing, administering, and disposal. And we can create one question about that. And
For
that's
all
how
of
you
them.
have it set there as a 2. So that looks perfect to me.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, explain what a dosage guideline is.
Hold on, back up. So
Oopsie, here we
1.33 is describe
Oops.
methods of tracking the expiration of legend drugs and devices. And that's where you are doing your quality assurance by looking through your bag and making sure that none of your drugs have expired so that you're not using out of date PID or whatever. So do we want a question on that? I mean, the answer to that is set up a method, whatever it is, to make sure that you, as part of your QA, that you're keeping up with your, so whether you're looking at your log or actually looking in the bag or doing both. So does that seem like a question that we need to ask? Because it looks like most of us thought it was.
I don't think it is.
I don't.
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I changed my mind.
me too.
What is a dosage guideline? Or explain what a dosage guideline is.
Yeah, I think a 2.
Appropriate labeling.
Mm-hmm.
Let's remove storage or packaging.
So that was like when we put stickers on a bag that had like a IV fluid when it has pit in it kind of thing, right?
Right.
Or if you like have a multi-use file of lidocaine and, you know, like the date you opened it and that kind of thing.
This
If it's
seems like
removed from its
it's
original
Have
packaging.
pit drawn at a birth. You want to probably label that.
yeah, this just seems like it's going to be a hard question to write.
Especially because we can't do true false questions. So
We cannot do true false.
so we all think it's important, obviously, but do we want to have a question on it?
Sure, because you
Maybe
if you
leave
have
it
a
in.
multiple choice question, you could still do that. You could be like, even if you ask the question, then you can be like, you actually one of your choices could be you don't actually need to label it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or you could
which we do.
two ways and say all of the above or whatever.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Craig, were you saying something? Craig?
No, but I think all of the above style answer for this would be appropriate.
Okay, great.
Actually, we don't write all of the above or none of the above questions either. It's not recommended for question writing. So, but we could figure it out in the
Tell my answers that. What the hell?
yeah.
You
We have a
also
lot of
can
rules
do
on
A
question
and
writing now.
B, C and D, A and C. Can't do that kind. It's too confusing for people.
Yeah.
There's a
it
lot of
is.
limitations that the state imposes that we don't necessarily as educators follow, you know?
Can't use negative. You can't. Yeah, there's lots of things, but we'll try to write it.
Critical thinking is not a requirement of being a midwife then. Okay, got it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this isn't to
The
become a
hardest
midwife.
class- the hardest
This is
class I
to
took in
use what,
college was testing and
Oops.
evaluation.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
it was the most challenging course I took. It's not easy.
No, it's not. And they're trying to follow some psychometric things here that you may disagree with. And remember, this isn't to become a midwife.
Right. You're right. You're right.
Okay, so labeling, yay, nay, what have we decided?
I heard a 2, but at the
Yeah,
end.
I like to.
Seems good.
Drug reference,
Eh.
okay, no question, everybody agree?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, universal precautions, define.
2. We got a lot of yeses there.
Everybody should
How
be
to
able-
utilize universal precautions.
Well, that's one of those things where you could have a listing question if you were allowed to have more than one answer on it. Like, this is a universal precaution around, masking, hazmat suit, gloving, and one of them is wrong. I guess we could have which one is wrong. I could go either way on this.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. List equipment needed for medication administration for the following routes.
Maybe,
2,
like across the board, right?
I don't think
Well-
inhaled is a 3 because we don't do inhaled.
Yeah, and oral, you don't need any equipment. I guess like a glass of water.
Right.
Yep.
If you look at the lists on sources, they always have gloves. You give them the pill with a glove on, right? But
so do you
Yeah.
want an individual question for each of these, or do you want
oh, they're individual. What you need for an IV is different from an IM injection. It's a different needle and size for subcute versus intradermal versus IM. We don't do inhaled. Oral doesn't have any equipment. Sublingual doesn't have, and buccal doesn't have any equipment. Topical doesn't really have any equipment. Rectal doesn't really have any equipment per se, although the glove does become
But you
much
may
more
want a glove, yeah.
Yeah. So,
might be an easy question though.
yeah. And then
Um,
vaginal and ophthalmic, the same thing. You don't need special equipment for those. So
so really just the first 4 on the,
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but if we're gonna talk about the different needle sizes below, do you think we should just have one for IV and one for injections?
If we talk about the different sizes below and the different gauges of a needle and all of that, then sure.
It's fine to leave it like that. Different needle sizes.
That is really important to have, I think. For
Yeah,
all.
I would do ones for these personally.
Filter meters are still the what is it, USP or whatever still says we should be using filter needles on glass ampules. I looked it up yet again. So to me that's important. It could be a 2, but I'm also okay with a 1.
anyone?
I kind of like it as a 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different syringe sizes. Two,
2.
skin surface disinfectants. Oh, and something happened.
Used for
Preferred versus non-preferred.
Oh, I see. I was not understanding that. Okay.
So to use for a preferred disinfectant would be those 2, or for not preferred would be those.
Mm-hmm.
I gave them 2s just because put them in the bank, but I'm also fine with them not being in there.
Thoughts?
I don't think we have much. Very few people are going to be using gentian violet as a skin disinfectant before an injection or something. So it feels like probably pretty safe on that.
So no for all of these? Oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they're not really necessary to be
Okay.
tested on anyway.
Okay. Hey, describe the different types of medication containers used and what medications within the LDM scope are packaged within each container.
Knowing the different types seems important because they have different considerations in terms of safety and labeling and how you draw it out and all that stuff.
So 2s maybe.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable.
Which medications are found within those containers is a separate issue for the test, because some things come in more than one container. Like you can still get PIT in all 3 of those.
Mm-hmm.
You can get epinephrine in all 3 of those. You can, so you can get normal saline actually in all 3 of those. So some things are very specific, but some are not. And so that starts to get complicated. So just the types, I think, or like you have highlighted, Cynthia. Well done, you.
Okay, thank you. The site for the intramuscular,
So it should say differentiate the sites with an S.
Mhm.
And then what are the sites for intramuscular injections for an adult? Because there's 4 for adults, but for newborns, there's really only 1. So
So 2.9A, what are the sites? It's just a typo thing, yeah.
I'm sorry, are you asking me a question?
We're telling you.
2.9A, right, what are the sites?
We need to change the wording.
Oh, what, sorry. You were asking me questions like, I don't know, Colleen. I don't know.
You thought you were, this is a test, Cynthia. Have you not learned?
No idea what that is.
Just read them out.
Oh, goodness, sorry.
Why did you keep asking me
I
that?
did dye my hair, just so y'all
No,
know.
sorry, I'm not really articulate.
Whew.
What are the sites with an S after site? There you go.
Sorry.
And we could even say, what are the 4 sites? Because there are 4 of them, if you want to be even more specific. 4 approved sites, commonly accepted for IM injection.
Do you want me to include 4?
Uh,
Approved?
That might help. No, just 4 sites. You don't have to say
Okay.
approved. All right.
And then, so is that going to be a 1 or a 2?
I think it's a 1. Both of those, I think, are 1s. And everybody agreed that they're yeses, so I
Yeah.
think they're 1s.
Okay. Okay.
Parent-terror routes, just define them. I'm sticking with my 2s, but
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the name kind of says it all, but that doesn't necessarily mean people know it. 3-point check, looks like everybody agrees that's important, so a 1.
A 1 on that? Okay.
Okay, and then 2.12, describe when to perform the following point check techniques. Have a look at 2.12 again.
I think it just means the 3-point check, like the 3 times to check the 3-point check. Not
Oh, gotcha.
all
Yeah,
three.
so why can't they just be the same thing?
Well, there's the 3 things that are in the 3-point check, and then there's when do you perform the 3-point check.
I mean, all right.
So describe when to perform the 3-point check is what it needs to say, technique.
Instead of the following, just the 3.
Yeah. I'm double checking to make sure that. Yeah, you're exactly right, Catherine. Okay. So then this is one coming up on administration where I gave all of these 3s because we have a separate skills exam that will cover all of the steps.
Mm-hmm.
And so that seemed the more appropriate place to do that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm open.
I'm sorry, I didn't get, was it a 1 or a 2 on the 2.12?
1.
A 1, okay.
That seems fine for me for administration.
For administration, I think so too.
So 3s on all these?
Mhm.
For the written test, because we already have it in the skills test.
Mhm.
And
And
so that
Thing
that's
here,
why,
Same
I'm
thing.
sorry, what, Colleen?
same thing for practical application.
yeah. Now, the only thing that might need discussion is administration of sterile water papules. But I think we should, that's your subdermal or intradermal. And so we have that. So maybe, so we have filter needle, multi-dose vial, IM, subcutaneous. So administration of, instead of saying sterile water papules, maybe it needs to say of intradermal injection or whatever we're calling it up above.
That's a good idea. Mhm.
Because that makes it sound like we need somebody to bend over and show us their lower back and actually give them a stick of water papules, and we probably don't want to do it. So we
What
call
did you
it
want me to call it?
intradermal injection. And then get rid of sterile water papules. X amount. Okay.
Okay.
It's
And
still-
are we doing a 2 on that?
No, it's covered in the skills exam.
Oh, so we're still gonna go no question on it, even
Yeah.
though we're changing that. Gotcha.
Just to make it more clear here, though.
And then we all are also going to, do you want me to change that on the competencies then as well?
Okay, hold on a second. I might be changing my mind, you guys. I apologize. I didn't just dye my hair either, so I have no excuse. Maybe what we're trying to get at here is the 4 locations for the injection for sterile water. I don't know that we have a question about that anywhere else, a written question. Now I'm trying to figure out how you can make a multiple choice question about that. We could incorporate that into the skills exam somehow. You get what I'm saying? Like, it seems like that's an important thing to make sure they know, since we're telling them they have the authority to do it. But if we don't ask a specific question, like the way I've done it on my tests is I have them draw where they go on a picture of a back.
Sure.
But we can't do that on this test.
Can we have 4 drawing options to choose from?
Can we have 4 drawing options to choose from?
I don't know. Yes, we do. We have, we can, in our testing system, upload photos. I've never done it, but we can do it. We'll figure it
So in
out.
that case, I would change this back and give it a 1. Does that make sense? Why I'm thinking that it would be on the written test, demonstrate
Location.
appropriate placement of sterile water papule injections.
And that's because we're not having them demonstrate it.
The skills exam. We're having them do an ID injection, but not a.
Okay.
Not a fake back. And what it would say is indicate instead of demonstrate. Indicate appropriate placement of sterile water papule injections. So papule singular and then injections plural.
I do have a question. On this one, this was on the administration, it's listing the steps for so.
Yep.
And you don't want them to list those steps. That's not important.
Well, they're going to be showing us the steps during the skills exam, and they're in order.
Okay.
So you can't do the alcohol wipe after you've injected the medication, right? So that's already covered inherently in the skills test. That was a good question, though. Like we could ask them somehow, but with multiple choice questions and not listing questions, that would be a nightmare.
Okay.
So.
Okay, you guys, it's I just need to take a quick run down the hall.
Can you move it up on the page a little bit so that we can read it?
Yes.
Okay, stop there.
Can we take just a quick 5-minute break? Do you mind?
If we say no, what happens?
She's leaving anyway. I can see she's already out of her chair, man.
I know. So that's so polite of you to ask.
I don't think Brandon wants to sit here with, a puddle on the floor. I just don't think he'll do it.
Brian is so inflexible.
All right, I'll be right back, guys. Thank you.